German steam locomotives are not very well represented in the three-rail O-gauge community. But I always thought they looked especially sharp, with their bright red bottoms and the somewhat sinister-looking smoke deflectors at the front. So over the last few months, I've been converting various Lionel and Williams pieces to look like German equipment from the World War II era, and even some locomotives based on the book The Man in the High Castle. In this episode, I'd like to convert a cheap Lionel locomotive into what I think a German switcher may have looked like in the 1940s. There's really not too much to talk about with this train. The shell is made from molded plastic, and any detail that's here is molded in place. The grab rails, steam pipes, and bell are all pretty much just shapeless blobs. This was probably part of a starter set, and a quick eBay search shows that most of these are priced in the $10 to $15 range, and they don't seem to be selling. So I have no problems taking mine apart and changing it into something that is at least more useful and appealing to me. To convert this into something more European, I'll first need to remove the undersized nose coupler and the cowcatcher up front. The rotary tool takes time, and the friction melts some of the plastic along the way, but eventually I end up with a mostly flat area. Sandpaper will finish up the job, and pretty soon it'll be time for adding some of the new stuff. I have a collection of flat sheet styrene in various thicknesses. This front piece needs to be pretty thick. And all this stuff pretty much cuts like drywall. I score the lines several times, and then it snaps in two. Sanding the edges will straighten everything up, and it'll be ready to be glued onto the shell pretty soon. Plastic weld cement by Plastruct is a solvent that flows between the pieces and bonds them together pretty much permanently. After they've had time to set for a few hours, there's really no getting them apart. So the new plastic up front goes a long way towards making this look European. But it'll be these smoke deflectors that make it German, at least in my mind. This plastic is way thinner than the first kind, and I'll just lightly score it so that I can bend it just a little bit without breaking it into two pieces. I'll add a little bit of reinforcement with some scrap styrene behind the area that's bent, and then cut the upper edge, the front upper edge, at a 45-degree angle. Square plastic tubing is cut at an angle also that pretty closely matches the curve of the locomotive's boiler. These pieces will be the upper supports for the smoke deflectors. A cheap plastic shell is way easier to work with than a die-cast locomotive. It makes attaching any styrene modifications so much easier. The liquid solvent cement flows easily between the parts and forms a quick and sturdy bond. I'm getting close to the point where I can start painting, which is good because I can sometimes get a little impatient with these projects if I don't see noticeable improvement or progress. A few more details were added with leftover plastic scraps, and there already was a sliding door above the cab, but it wasn't very well defined. I like this better, and it was pretty easy to make with just a few plastic pieces. I'm pretty sure that these little round pieces are called something other than bumpers, but I'll use upholstery tacks to replicate them on this locomotive's front end. This is where I start to feel some real satisfaction and gratification for my work. The satin black is the last color that I need to spray, so the finish line is finally in sight. The paint transforms the cheap plastic into a shell that now looks more like painted die cast. It needs to cure for a day or so before I can apply decals and put it all back together. So, thinking about expenses for this project, there really haven't been too many. The locomotive and tender were purchased years ago, and I can't remember the cost. I already owned the cans of spray paint that I used, so those were paid for too, and the decals were leftovers from other builds. If I had to put a number to the whole thing, I'd guess at less than 20 bucks, maybe even less than 15, which is pretty okay.